Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Big Talk About Small Business. I am your co-host, Eric Howerton, and my other co-host, Mark Zweig, is not with us today, but he'll be back very soon in the next episode or so. So I'm sorry y'all have to hang out with me. This is like 2 episodes in a row where the audience has had to listen to my stupid face. So, but I have great guests. That's all that really matters. So. I have another one today. His name is Clay Bell. He has been an entrepreneur, small business owner for a few decades now, actually. Sorry to age you on that one, but it's true.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
Yeah, you're a legend there.
I'm an old man.
You're a legend around here.
Yeah, well, yeah, know about that, but been doing it for a little while.
So I've known Clay for quite some time. We were neighbors about 15 years ago. And
you remember how we met, right?
Met at a party
at a neighborhood mixer. Howard Hamilton had a little neighborhood mixer, and you and I met. And then after that, it was like I'd look out my front door and I could see Eric over in his yard, his garage, working on stuff. I'd kind of meander over there after work. We were always getting into something, over in your garage.
Very, very true. And then we got it really worked in the same kind of industry. I mean, I wasn't nearly as close as you were, but you've been selling products to major retailers.
We rented office space from you guys at White Spider.
Yep, that's right.
When you guys were over right by Millsap there in Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you've been you know the retail market like back of your hand. You spend a lot of time in there, and you worked with a lot of good brands that are going into mass retail, and so you've always had a good business going on. So. But anyway, I want to tell your story. Clay, why don't you start out telling us a little bit about your pathway to business ownership?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this when you shared kind of what you wanted to talk about today. But yeah, and I really took me back to my childhood as I started thinking about how I got into small business, entrepreneurial business development, and then doing what I'm doing today in the retail consumer packaged goods industry. So my dad he's a car dealer. He's a longtime car dealer in Hot Springs, Arkansas. That's where I'm from.
He's a small business owner.
Small business owner, yeah. He had 2 partners. They had the Buick Oldsmobile GMC dealership there in Hot Springs, and I grew up there. I mean, I was up there mowing, weed eating from the time I was 10 years old to all the way through college. I detailed cars back in the service department, and it was
did you do an incredible job?
Yeah, I did, and it was one of those deals. It was like if I don't go and further my education, I might be detailing cars for my dad for the rest of my life.
And it's hot as hell.
And it's hot as hell, and it is a thankless job because you're the low man on the totem pole. But the reason I bring that up is because I look back to those days, from about probably 12 to 18, 20 years old, because I do it in the summer when I was in college, and just learning how to work, working in a small business and my dad being in small business, and in that type of business where it's all about, you got to sell cars or you don't get paid. I mean, you got to be moving inventory and you got to be hustling. And it kind of helped me, I think, from the early days on to understand that, hey, business is all about, you've got to be generating sales. You've got to be moving that inventory. You've got to find things that sell. And it's a lot of hard work. I really am appreciative of both of my parents because they were always plugging me in to, they never just gave me things. They said, if you want this, here you can go do this work and we'll pay you and you can use your money to buy it. So, from a young age, it helped me to understand that if you're not working, you're probably not making any money. So,
well, you said a good point that I think is so simple, but it's also like honestly truth. Like you have to hustle and go get the money. When you start a business, money doesn't land on your lap. Like you're not receiving, you're activating money in the market. And so, like to your point, you got to see your dad. Like, I mean, did he work Saturdays? Did he work?
Oh yeah, dude. Saturdays was the only day of the week back in those days where they didn't have to wear a coat and tie. So he was coat and tie every day,
really,
Monday through Friday, and then they would work pretty much all day Saturday. Because Saturday's a huge day in the car business, because that's when a lot of people car shop. So, yeah, I mean, it was 6 days a week that he was logging in. So he was, he he spent a lot of time, and it's a business where if you're not selling cars, you're not getting paid. Now he was one of the owners, so obviously he was he had a salary, but in that business, you have to turn inventory.
Did he have a really balanced life? And
absolutely, Eric. You've met my father. You know how he's an old cowboy. He's an old cowboy that is a workaholic, and but I love him to death and learn so much from him.
Well, yeah, but the point is like I hear so many young entrepreneurs or small business owners that are starting a business because they want to have more control over their time and their financial situation and have more balance in life. And I'm like, that's the opposite of what running a business is.
Well, and I think you can realize that maybe year 4, 5, or 6 in a new business, but when you're starting something and it's consuming, I mean, when and I've tended to, in my career, I like being a part of the early stages. That's where I get most excited and passionate. From concept to proving the concept to growing and scaling, I've always enjoyed those stages.
Yeah.
And I tend to find myself losing interest once it gets past, into the more scale, more stable. It's more managing the business. That's usually when I tend to move on to something else, just because I get bored and lose interest. And so, I've always enjoyed being a part of the early stages of starting new things, and that's kind of, if you look at my career, that's really what it looks like. I mean, I've been different things for 5 to 10 years, and then I'm moving on. And but when the blessing and the curse of being in those early stages is it's hard work, man. I mean, a new business doesn't just happen out of thin air when you're doing it just kind of on your free time. I mean, you gotta make it your passion. You gotta put your heart and soul and your blood, sweat, and tears into it if it's going to go. And I mean, you started enough businesses. It's all consuming. It's
sacrifice.
Late nights. It's weekends. It's especially those first years. I mean, proving that concept and growing that concept to the point where it's actually paying you. And you can begin to have some more balance and control in your life, but it takes a while to get there.
Yeah.
So, young entrepreneurs, don't think day one it's going to be all about balance and control, because you're trying to push a heavy boulder up the hill.
That's a dangerous expectation to go into.
Yes.
Business with. Yeah. I mean, it can literally, like I've mentioned it before, but it could really put people not only like financially at risk, but you could put you like mentally and emotionally at risk if you. Because you'll walk out of that thinking you're a failure, blah, 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 et cetera. I mean, it could knock you back 10 years versus putting you ahead. I mean, I just get worried about that. Because, the only people that I see that are really making money the easy way are the ones that are writing the books telling you how you can make money the easy way.
The coaches?
The coaches.
Yeah. There are a lot of coaches out there, and some of them are really good. I've utilized several coaches in my days, but there has become a proliferation of coaches.
There has been. All right, so started your entrepreneurial, I guess, experience at a very young age, and then you moved into. How did you get into the retail sector? Because that's what you've been doing for so long.
Yeah. So, my first job out of college, I started in the nonprofit world. So, 501c3 charitable. I worked with an organization called STUMO. Student Mobilization was their full name, but STUMO is what people know them now. Campus ministry organization, multiple campuses throughout the South Central U.S. But my first job out of college was I was the campus director for STUMO, and I mean we were compensated like missionaries. We had to go raise our own salary.
Sales.
It was sales. It's like if I want to get this many supporters giving me $50 a month, I need to go meet with this many, and I'm going to be told no by 70% of them. So I mean I learned pretty early that you've got to. It's a numbers game in some ways. You've got to be getting those at bats. But I did that for 6 years, and it was great training for me because basically I've always loved working with either high school or college students.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 6 years, and then my wife and I, we were planning to move to India. We actually started Stumo, the new work in India. We went over there for a couple of summers. And then, they now have a really growing ministry in India today, but this was back in the late 90s. And we were planning to move there. That was our plan when our kids were really young. Got out other plans. It didn't work out for us to actually move. So we've been in Fayetteville since college. But I thought I was going to be a missionary. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to learn, I wanted my kids to grow up in other cultures and learn to be bilingual or multilingual. And so when that didn't work out, it was like, well, I guess I need to go get a real job. So I put together a resume and I was like, okay, I don't know who's going to hire me to do something, but I know I can sell, because that's kind of in my blood and that's what my family's always been about. My dad's in sales, my sister's in sales, my grandparents were in sales. And so I actually joined. There were some guys that were former Procter & Gamble local team here on the Walmart team. They took a severance in the early 2001-ish. And the concept was to start a cross-functional customer team brokerage for small privately owned brands, that either they're family owned or they're owned by private equity or, some sort of a small private owned brand that it has, maybe they have a few items at a major retailer like Walmart or Sam's Club, but to bring that full cross-functional expertise where sales, marketing, supply chain, data analytics, insight development to that smaller challenger brand. So to help them win on shelf in the category. And we started that company in 2001. I was one of the early first members with the team. It was called North Star Partnering Group. Later morphed into Field Agent, which you'll know Field Agent today. And so that's how I got started in the consumer packaged goods industry. So fell in love with it. I love just the whole concept of putting items on shelf, whether it's the omni shelf or on the actual physical store shelf. That meets needs of consumers, meets unmet needs in consumers. And I love working with challenger brands, is what we call them, because typically they're not the number one brand in the category. I mean, usually you have, the big household name like a Tide or a Coca-Cola or whatever. That's the market share leader. Yeah. And then you have brands, the next brands below that. And usually the challenger brands are number 3, number 4, number 5 in the category, and they're maybe even single digit market share. But the challenge is to help them grow their market share. Yeah, against all odds. And the firm that I'm a part of now, I'm a partner in now, is called Dark Horse Retail. Named it Dark Horse because just in a horse race, the dark horse the odds are against that with that horse winning. And we feel like that's exactly what we do is we help challenger brands win when the odds are really stacked against us. Yeah. I mean, we don't have the budgets, we don't have the marketing firepower, we don't have that all that our competition does, but we have to figure out a way to try to grow the business and to gain more, share. So
something satisfying about that. Like it is.
It's hard, but I love it. I mean, it's always been a fun challenge, to take a category and go, okay, where is the white space? Where are the unmet needs? And, a lot of times when brands get really big, they get kind of settled and get comfortable, and they're not the changing needs of the consumer. They're not meeting those needs, and that's where challenger brands come in. And I'll tell you, the last 10 years, 5 to 10 years, a lot of innovation, especially in food, in beverage, is coming from small challenger brands. They're the ones bringing a lot of these better for you, healthier options, and those are the brands that we like to work with.
Well, it's interesting. I've witnessed in the retail sector, a lot of these innovations, and what happens is that the bigger brands are really acquiring that. That's where it's almost become their innovation strategy. Yeah. Because they just can't. I mean, it's just so fast today, and there's so much opportunity to enter in the entry to market for a product is like so easy now. That can actually take off a storm, and now the influencers are getting involved. Where I mean, you can have an influencer start a brand, and it's just instantaneously has millions of potential customers buying the product.
Well, I mean, you're really right. It's changed. The pathway to being on shelf at the largest retailers, like the Walmarts of the world, the Targets of the world, used to be you have to get in all the smaller ones first.
Yeah.
And to some degree, there's still some of that, but not so much anymore. I mean, we have challenger brands that have very little retail, actual physical retail space that they occupy, but they're over $100 million online.
It's crazy,
and it's like so. And the retailers have actually they've now, that's really been in the last 5-10 years. Really the last 5, you're seeing these brands are emerging via the omni-channel, via the Amazons and the online. And and these major big box retailers are going, hey, we need to put this on shelf because it's been so successful online. And so we see that. So the pathway is much shorter.
Yeah.
When you're able to build your brand online versus having to produce all this inventory to service all these retail stores. So it is really it's helped, I think, entrepreneurs and small business owners. To not have such the incredible capital outlays.
Sure.
Plus, online, the whole omni-channel, you can kind of improve the plane as you're selling it and building it. You can, without having to make hundreds of thousands of units, you can be improving it along the way. Really perfect it to the point where you do get it. When you do get to that scale, you're meeting the consumer's need.
Well, I imagine
your sauce is pretty perfected.
Yeah, imagine that. Like, even though it's easier, there's less of an entry barrier for them to get into.
Yeah.
But when they do get into mass, like, and you taught me this a long time ago, a decade ago, it doesn't mean that you're ready for it.
Right.
Because let's say that you did have a really successful product online, and then all of a sudden, you want to go to Walmart. Like, that's just not an easy thing to do. Even if Walmart accepts your product and brings it in. Like, you just added, I mean, that's a whole other business, man.
It is. And, it's something that we have to, because we deal with it a lot. We get a lot of phone calls from, brands, hey, we really would like for you to help us, go sell in Bentonville to the Walmarts and Sam's Club of the world. And there's a lot of, let's talk about where you are today, because it's about timing, and it's also about your operational capabilities, because it's a different operational skill set and capability to be able to service the largest retailers versus some of the smaller ones, and part of our our process of working with these brands is helping them understand how much they can to deliver, and being able to deliver what you do, because it's easier to get on shelf. What's really hard is to stay on shelf.
That's right.
And if your service metrics are poor, you're going to get deleted.
Yeah.
And
that's painful.
It is,
because you put a lot of work to get on that shelf.
When you've produced to go service thousands of stores, and the next thing you know, you're deleted. That's a really tough blow. And you
probably have seen that happen.
Oh man, I have. I've lived through some really difficult,
some serious deleters.
Yeah. And typically it's either it didn't sell, or they had a hard time keeping up with keeping the item in stock on the shelf, and so the merchants have to make hard decisions. I mean, they've only got so much space.
Yeah.
And they've got to generate a certain number of they got to generate dollars per square inch to hit their targets. And so, if you're occupying space and you're not measuring up, then you're going to get cut.
Especially like Walmart, I mean, that shelf space, some of the most valuable real estate on the planet Earth, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, and now with the omni-channel, they kind of have a platform, and they have a system to really know what's going to sell and what's not. I mean, they already know it's doing really well online. Yeah. So if I put it on shelf, so they have some of the greatest merchants in the world, and for good reason. I mean, they know.
They know how to procure products.
Yeah, and it's so yeah. I mean, you have to really deliver on the service side.
What I just want to get into, like, definitely the small. I mean, that whole industry is super intriguing. We need to have you back and just maybe keep going deeper. I wonder if the audience would like to learn more, because I'm sure that there's bound to. So we talk about the easy entry level, right? Well, that's going to encourage a lot of entrepreneurs that are like, oh, I'm going to create a product. I see a product need, I want to take it to market. I'm going to start online, and you hear a lot of these stories, these, glorious stories of online D2C or direct to consumer products, or I sell on, eBay or Walmart Marketplace. And, I can start this online business without much headache or much capital, and they can. But, like understanding that pathway, like there's a lot of challenges there. And I've seen it on the digital side, right? Basically on the digital merchandising side, like where it's just it's not as easy as a game as what it's painted out there to be. Like you only see the highlight reels,
Yeah. What they don't see is, hey, when you're in the warehouse building displays, at, 11 o'clock at night, trying to get them out for that next day. They don't see all of that. Those blood, sweat, and tears is what it takes, for these, to develop a product line and bring it to market and to grow it successfully. I mean,
and they don't understand. They don't see the, like in my business at White Spider, I just remember like they don't see the relentless amount of details needed to get your attribution and your content correct for the digital side of things. And if you don't have that, and then it never ends, right? There's just so much grunt work involved in anybody that's doing well online or in store in these products and manufacturing. Like there is so much damn work.
It is.
That's got to be done. And so it's overwhelming. It's not it's not a one person gig that you just slide into.
No.
All right. So anyway, let's talk about a little bit about the small business, because I think you actually, like it's interesting. Your clients are small business owners, so you are basically, in essence, advising and guiding them, and you've seen a lot of mistakes and successes through them. In addition to you being a small business entrepreneur yourself, I'm sure you got a lot of really important topics that you think are like. What are some of the biggest, like from your perspective, the most important things for an entrepreneur, small business owner in general, if they're going to start a business? Like, what do you see as like some of the biggest, most important things?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down some things here, just some learnings I've had. Some of these learnings the hard way, and I think you and I were talking about this earlier this morning. Is if you're going to be an entrepreneur, one of them I put on here is you can't be afraid to fail. Nobody wants to fail. Nobody celebrates failure, but it's going to happen. You're not going to bat 1,000 if you're going to be an entrepreneur. So, and I think as an entrepreneur, it's important to understand what the downside could be. A lot of entrepreneurs never really contemplate, if this doesn't work, how do I recover from that? And so you can't be afraid of it. You got to be aware of it, and then you work like crazy to make sure that it doesn't happen. But people who are afraid of failure, or maybe they're just they need a lot of security. The world of entrepreneurship is probably not for you, and it's not for everybody. I mean, it really isn't. I mean, it takes a certain personality type, certain level of tolerance of risk. It takes a certain I call it just I'm going to figure it out as I go. I'm going to figure it out. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to figure it out. And I'm going to fake it until I make it. That's right. I mean,
smoke and mirror.
I'm just going to learn fast and be a fast learner and quick study and that's a lot of what I believe. A lot of small business startups. I mean, there's so many things. You and I talked about this earlier that have to go right for it to work. I mean, there is some whatever you want to call it. God's blessing or luck or whatever you want to call it. There is some of that, and then obviously you're putting your heart and soul into this new venture, But I think the fear of failure is what prevents a lot of people from maybe stepping out there and trying to do something.
You said something that actually kind of struck me a little bit, and I've experienced this. I wonder if you have the same, like this figuring it out mentality. I have seen in my career, like I'll have people on the team coming to me all the time. Oh my gosh, this is happening, or they just, oh, we can't do this, or we don't have the ability to do this, and I'm like, or so and so your competitor's doing it and you can. And I'm just like, figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Like, it's interesting. Like, I think that, like, I don't literally see any barriers of something that I can't figure out, especially with today's resources.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You got to kind of have that
Yeah.
mentality, like where you
do. You know? I mean, it's, small business is so much of things are just figuring things out. I mean, it's problem solving. It's like,
totally.
Okay, here's the problem. How are we going to fix it? And nobody writes a manual on what to do next.
There is not.
I mean, there is no. So you have to. You're pretty much creating your own manual along the way.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm going to try, and I'm going to keep trying things until I find something that works.
Yep.
And I think that's another really important mindset of an entrepreneur is they don't get intimidated by a problem.
Sure.
They see it as, okay, we're going to go, here it is. Let's find the solution. And if we put our heads together, I feel confident we will find a way through this. And so, because that's just kind of daily, seems like.
Yeah.
I mean, are there many days where you don't have any problems, Eric?
Never.
Small business?
Never, man. No, you got to
all run smoothly and they don't have any problems ever.
Dude, you got to like literally like know how to emotionally detach from those things, and you can't figure it all out at one time. It's kind of like I figured out just enough to get by for this hour or for this day.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to. I need to go. I got to sleep a little bit tonight because I didn't sleep well last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you try to navigate.
Oh yeah.
How to figure it out.
Oh yeah. Well, John Maxwell. He's written all these books. He's kind of these. I love his saying. He's like, we don't need any more problem spotters. We need problem solvers.
That's a good point.
He's like, I don't need you to spot problems for me.
Yeah.
I need you to spot them and then come with a solution.
Hell yeah.
And in any kind of small business, I mean, when you have to have people like that.
Yeah.
You can't just have people that can see all the problems and spot them and point them out to everybody. It's like, no. It's important to identify them, but then you need to have a solution, have an idea of what we need to go do.
Those are your valuable teammates.
And that was the other thing I was going to say is, having the right people in any small enterprise, because, one bad egg can just, one Debbie Downer, one problem spotter can be the detriment, So you got to have people who think are like-minded and think, like we're talking about, hey, problem, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
We're going to figure it out.
Do you think that that's something that can be, I don't know, like taught or guided, like with a team? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know that there are certain people that I've experienced that are just negative Nancy's and don't want to ever evolve.
Yeah.
But I have also found, though, like a lot of times, like when you do get together a great team or a few people that have great mental or attitudes,
positive energy, can-do spirit.
They're behind and a little bit passionate about what they're doing and what the business is doing. They may just not know that they can solve problems. It's kind of like they have blockers from their childhood or educators, whatever it might be. But I've been seeing a lot of being able to help them get out of their own blockers. And then they're empowered and their confidence grows. And then now you got this team of people that can solve problems.
Yeah.
Without you having to solve all the problems all the time.
Yeah. No, I think, it's one of those things, if you're to train young people, how to do this, I think the most effective way is just to do it with them. I call it the with them principle. It's an old principle we used to use in campus ministry where we're training our leaders is just do it with them. They'll see you do it, and then you let them try.
Yeah.
And then, that's how you really learn how to do anything that requires a skill. And problem solving is a skill. And so when you problem solve and you model it for someone, and then you let them take the point, and you do it together until it becomes something pretty natural for them.
So you don't think problem solving is a natural talent?
I think absolutely. I think some people are just more oriented and geared than others,
but it can be something that's you learn.
But I think, I really do believe in it. Anybody can become a problem solver. I mean, they can hone their skills and abilities at how to see a problem and come up with some solutions. It just requires it's a certain muscle memory and mental memory of how to approach,
A lot of it's, I think, confidence.
It's confidence. Yeah, absolutely.
I can solve
and, creativity and all of those things. Like, I can just try some things until I figure something that
resources.
works. I mean, You know, I mean,
Experience,
you got, you know, and so, but yeah, and that's, you know, when you talk about having the right people on your team, you know, they're going to model what the leader does.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you have that mentality and you approach problems that way, then they're going to approach them that way.
So when we were talking earlier before the show, like you mentioned something else that like you get better with it the more you do it. Like what was that you were talking about? We were
spotting opportunities.
Yes,
spotting new business opportunities.
And that's another one of your big bullet points.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Just the ability to spot opportunities, unmet consumer needs that aren't being met today. I mean, when we look at categories, you know, it could be any category. It could be the peanut butter category. You know, what's missing? What do consumers need that's not there today? Mm-hmm. And you know, and it could be, so we look at it that way. Where is the white space? Mm-hmm. And it really does start with the consumer. You know, what's the consumer want or need that's not there yet? Now, you have some you know, used to not even be categories like smartphones. I mean, nobody knew they needed a smartphone until we actually had them and used them. And like, oh, how would we ever live without these?
Yeah.
So you have those kinds of just groundbreaking innovations that there never was this unmet consumer need that we knew of, but it came about as technology emerged. But you know, a lot of what we do is being able to spot the white space and going, okay, you know, if we could cater our product or our service to this particular unmet need, there's a real business opportunity there.
What I love about, I've always appreciated about your business of retail, right, is that like even as you're saying that, I can picture the shelf at Walmart of the peanut butter shelf. Mm-hmm. And like, what is it? And so what you're talking about just as an entrepreneur is like you look at the peanut butter that's up there, you got creamy, you got sugar, you got all these things, and then there's something else, although they got 10 products, there's something missing in there. Yeah. And an entrepreneur's job is to go, okay, there's something, that's what they're missing. Mm-hmm. And then that's where it all sources from, right?
I have a client. I use the peanut butter example because I wanted to tell you about this client. It's a brand called Fit Butters. Yeah, it's on shelf at Walmart today and most other retailers. But this brand started as a young couple. Started it in their garage. They were CrossFitters, healthy, love peanut butter. Yeah, but they wanted a healthier peanut butter that didn't have, you know, that had a cleaner ingredient deck. Yeah, so they created this product called Fit Butters, and it's made from, you know, different flavors. There's, you know, they have some almond butters, and they have peanut butters, and they have macadamia nut butters, and all these different nut butters. But it's made from coconut oil. Has a real clean ingredient deck. You know, it's got good protein. The macros are really solid on it. So they created it in their garage, but there was nothing on the shelf like it. Yeah, and they created it in their garage during COVID. And now they're pretty much...
That was only during COVID?
That was during COVID. And they started selling it online, and next thing you know, I mean, they're at every major retailer today. And so it's a perfect example of someone who was in a particular lifestyle, and they were looking for a healthier peanut butter. And they started this brand called Fit Butters.
You know, and I like the perspective, too, of like what I was bringing up. What prompted that question was that you get better at that over time. So, I mean, like, what your statement is like you as, you know, you're a small business owner, but you're consulting with these brands, and over time, over the years, you're able to go look at a shelf, and you can already know what a white space is by probably seeing other categories, learning from experience, and saying, okay, there's a Fit Butter. Well, what about Fit being anywhere else in the store?
Yeah. What
Fit
other categories?
Fit,
exactly.
Fit honey.
Yes.
I don't know.
You're right. You're right.
And so you can get better at that.
Yeah. Yeah. The more you do it, the better. It's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get. And the quicker you're able to spot the white space, you know, the opportunities.
Yeah. I've kind of experienced that, you know, in what we were talking about earlier. I found this kind of fascinating. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Clay, like, being an entrepreneur and small business owner in my brain is like a big freaking bowl of spaghetti. I don't know anything that I might do that would be contribute to any success that I might have, because it's just such a massive amount of stuff
Yeah.
It's
Well, most of the time, it feels like you're just trying to keep a nostril above water. You know, it's just it's like when someone asks you, "What are your keys?" and I'm like, I don't know. I think about that for a while. I just try to survive. I just try to keep air coming into my lungs.
And by the way, I'm still not safe. You know, there's no safety.
Yeah, I could go out of business any day now. You know, so
things are great today.
Yeah, today.
You know,
right.
But I mean, like I just. You know, a lot of times it'll just come out. The easiest thing to say is, "Oh, luck." A lot of good luck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, hopefully that's not all we're counting on is our good luck.
No,
but yeah, you're right.
But you know, I think that over the time the experience, and what I like about this, it gets better because yes, it does. Like there's to see an opportunity, but then you also have this, you know, super rapid thinking process. Like if I see that opportunity, like I'm able to now go through this, like almost like an AI type process, right? That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
To where I can see a lot of pitfalls and problems and how, okay, if I do that, like, okay, what are the risk mitigations? What are the legal consequences of it? Like how much capital is that going to take me? Is it going to be worth going for that?
Yeah, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Is the juice worth the
you know,
squeeze?
Is there an ROI there?
Yeah,
and that has to be. Yeah, I mean that has to be. You know, you learn to do that after. You know I learned the hard way after failures and losing money. You learn to make that part of your calculation when you are spotting opportunities.
That's right.
You know, what's the potential downside, and can we weather it if it?
How big can the market be? Another thing is I get like some market, like what's the exit opportunity?
Right.
Because how does this thing end? And do I have to be ingrained in this like I have been before? You know, there's just. It's. I just thought that statement you made earlier about you get better with it. It's true. I never really thought about that, but you do.
Yeah.
What other points you got? We got a few more minutes that.
You know, I mentioned it earlier, but I think being able to bring together the right people. You know, any small business startup, or you know, even if you're further along the path, having the right people. You know, I've always been in the service business, so. You know, so important to have good people who really know how to take care of your clients and your customers and their needs, and you know they go over and above, and they, you know, they're kind and they're courteous and they have a great sense of customer service. You know, we talk about it a lot. You know, in our business, I've always had really good success hiring young people who've had a lot of experience working jobs like, you know, waiting tables, and they're anticipating the customer's need before they even have to tell them. You know, they're like, "Oh, it looks like you need some more water here, Mr. Howerton. Can I get you some more?"
Yeah, please.
I mean, those types of skills, you know, having those on your team are really important. You know, so the skill sets, character, having the right character and the right cultural fit. You know, if they don't get along or have a good fit with the rest of the team. You know, they obviously have their own talents that they bring to the table, and having the right talent mix in your group. You know, the reason I think I've always gravitated towards more startup types of small business startup, early stage kinds of things is I just love that whole, hey, we're all going to get in our canoes and we're going to go down this river we've never been down before. We're just going to see what happens. We're going to figure it out.
It's adventure.
We're going to figure it out. It's, you know, the adrenaline of that, I think, is what I've kind of gotten addicted to. It's like, it's so much fun. And it's not a solo deal. It's you're a team, and if you have the right team, and I've been a part of some really cool teams. I've been so fortunate in my career to be part of many super talented teams to where it's like, man, together we create this synergy, and it's like playing music in a group. It's like we create this synergy together. That's that's what keeps you coming back for more.
If you give me a guitar by myself, I'm going to sound a little like shit. But if you put me in a band,
with some other people that sound good, man. Yeah, exactly.
That's a really good analogy.
You're not limited by your own talent and your own abilities. You've got a team of people that you can really, especially when you jive together really well,
That's such a good analogy because, like, then you got your drummer, keeps you on beat. You got your bass, it keeps that.
Everybody's got to listen to one another, and or it doesn't. It's not going to sound.
And you got to sometimes let that lead guitar start shredding it, and
sometimes that lead guitar player is just going to have to solo for a while. Let him get it out of his system, and then he'll come back and play with the rest of us.
And sometimes they're playing so loud you got to take them off the stage.
Right? You know, sometimes you just sneak over there and turn down their amp.
And then you got the lead singer who's got this, very arrogant, narcissistic attitude, right?
You do have that.
But you gotta have that. Sometimes.
Yeah, make sure you stay in good graces with the sound guys, and they can make sure that they are managing the volume levels.
That's right. Well, you got the back end sound. I mean, that's a really cool analogy because it is like as an entrepreneur to start your own business, and you want to be what we would call a solopreneur, right? Which has become another big thing. It's like, I have no interest in that. That seems very lonely to me.
Yeah, I started my firm. Actually, it was just me. Started out with some partners, didn't work out. This was 2012 when I started my firm, 12 Company, and it still exists today. It's my consulting business, more of a sideline these days. But I was the only employee, only owner, for years. That was actually when I started officing with you guys at White Spider, because I just got tired of working from home. I was like, man, I just like being on a team, and I did that for several years. It was a good experience. It was good for me to do that, but it taught me, and I became convinced that I want to be on a team. I've always been a band guy. I've never been a solo artist. I want to play in a group. I want to be in a team of other people who have all these talents that I don't have, so that I'm not just limited by by me.
Yeah, that's right. There's so much to be said about that. Like everything that you're sharing, like enjoyment of that startup and that team culture. And I love, the canoe down the river. And I mean, man, there's an adventure to that. There's an exploration. That's what's really cool about business is that, like, when we're talking about finding those white spaces, like you're going into a realm that it's uncharted territory in a way. And even if it's already been set a path, if a little diversion to the quality or characteristics of a product or a service is uncharted new territory. And that's what makes the whole thing exciting. Man, I'm sorry we run out of time. You and I have talked way too much before the podcast that we were running a little late for it.
Yeah.
Which is all.
Oh, yeah.
It's my
This
fault.
is fun, man. Thanks for having me. I love this.
You have any last point or anything you want to make before we...
I was just going to say, at the end of the day, if you're in business, like I said, I was in nonprofit before, but when you're in a for-profit business environment, at the end of the day, at some point you got to turn a profit.
That's true.
Or your business no longer can continue to exist. I know there's a lot of businesses out there that tend to be able to keep raising more and more outside capital, but fiscal financial discipline, I think, is critical. I've learned that sometimes on the hard way. You got to really be smart with how you, if you are in a position where you've raised capital, work using other people's money or you're using your own money.
That's right.
Having that fiscal financial discipline or really being smart with how you invest and where you put your resources is really important.
You can't escape it.
Yeah, it can be, it can be catastrophic if you don't.
Man, I agree, Clay. Thanks so much for coming on. We're going to have you back again.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Good stuff.
I'd love to.
I think our audience is going to be really interested on about the whole product creation, because it is such that ability to enter that realm is a lot. It's exciting for people, and I think that they would really appreciate to understand a little bit more about how those small business owners were able to find success in that. But you hear about the fit butter, but you don't hear about the thousands of them that were absolutely, did not make it for a very small reason. It doesn't take a major reason to not be successful. It just takes one minor reason. That's what makes it, But same thing if you're going exploring, and everything's worked out, and you got, and you're hiking across a mountain, and you got a big team, everything's good, but then you snap an ankle. That could ruin everything.
Yeah.
And it's because you stepped on a rock wrong.
That's right.
Doesn't take much to put you out of the game, bro.
Yeah. It's there are a lot of factors that have to work in your favor.
Yep. All All right. Well, so hey, Clay Bell, everybody. Clay, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, LinkedIn. I mean, is it the best way?
I'm on LinkedIn. Clay Bell on LinkedIn, and then you can find me on social media.
Cool. Clay Bell, Bell. So thanks so much for coming in today. And folks, don't forget to tune in, subscribe, all those kinds of fun things and then, the biggest things, keep sending us questions. We've been getting good questions in lately from our audience, which is always neat to hear. There's so many, like, what are all these little minor things that can happen to you in business? And maybe we got some advice. So thanks. Been another episode of Big Talk about small business. Like it. You threw a little rap on that. That's nice. Big talk. Thanks, babe. All right.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk about small business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.